So, hi everyone. I'm here with Josh Harris, who's the founder and CEO of Doc2, which is a document communication and management company. Welcome, Josh. It's great to chat to you. I mean, we were originally chatting around some of the digitalization of documents and handling of documents and just making that more efficient. And so we had a very interesting conversation. So I thought it'd be good to share that a little bit with the folks here. Maybe it's just worth starting off by, obviously you guys look at, document digitalization of that, and that's been a big theme, particularly in the collections and recoveries industry, I suppose, since lockdown. I mean, what are some of the things you've seen, or some of the trends you've seen? I think that'd be quite interesting to start with.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, thank you very much for having me along. So I guess more recently, obviously, every industry has been impacted with what's been going on recently, and we've absolutely seen that with what we're doing as well. Because first of all, I mean, purely a lot of motivation for businesses has been just looking purely at e-signing, just because people haven't been able to meet up on contracts. So that's been a driver for a lot of people to look into digital solutions to help them, first of all, get their contract signed, but then actually they're discovering other sort of solutions out there that are enabling sort of better processes, making more efficient processes in more than just the e-signing sort of part of that process, but actually through the creation of those contracts as well, or those documents that they're sending out to be signed as well. So we get a lot of people coming to us saying, oh, we want e-signing, but actually then we can show them a whole better process, or they're looking for something slightly more rounded to improve the whole process rather than sort of individual part of the process, which was happening before this sort of whole situation happened.
Yeah. So do you think, has the industry gone through a bit of a step change, I suppose, because we've had e-signature around for a while, and obviously we've been forced to be at home now, and we're forced to go through these like electronic processes. Do you think it's creating a bit of a sea change, or do you think, and do you think that's going to stick? What's your feeling on that?
Absolutely. So a lot of these processes are things that businesses say, oh, we'll get round to looking at that process. We'll get round to improving the e-signing process. We'll get round to making this process more efficient. And then when everyone went into lockdown, they suddenly had time to look at all of those processes and look into what they can actually do rather than what they've just been doing because it was working. And I think once you spend a little bit of time looking to automating different processes, it's easy to see there's so many different processes throughout the business that can be automated. And therefore, this time during lockdown for people has enabled them to look across their whole business, across all of the processes within their business, spend the time looking at them and realize what they can do now going forward. And I think that's just going to continue now. I think now people have seen a taste of what they can do across the business. It is going to be the businesses that utilize that across all of those processes that are really going to do well out of this. And we're seeing that across all sorts of industries, of course, including sort of debt recovery and financial service businesses as well.
And how much of it is pull versus push? So how much is that it's being pushed by, let's say, clients versus being pulled by the customers? So the whole digitalization piece, is it customers, do you think, who are saying, look, I want to be able to do this digitally now? Or do you think it's clients in your case that are saying, look, we've got to do this digitally because I've got to get through the volume? And do you think it's pull or push?
I mean, with all of these things, there's elements of both in there. In a lot of the conversations I have, people are saying, we just want to make that onboarding process incredibly easy for our customers or whoever it is that's signing these sorts of documents. And that's sort of driven a bit within because they want to make their business look good. They want to make just actually, getting a contract sent out and signed as efficient as possible, because that means they can get on with the work and collect their fees at the end of the day much more quickly. So there's an element of both now. I think you've got to keep your customers happy by giving them an easy process in the first place, and if you want to keep them longer term. But also you want to keep your staff happy as well, because you want to make the internal processes nice and easy. And as efficient as possible as well. So there's definitely both sides of the coin with that one. And each customer is a little bit different, but ultimately getting those processes as easy and as quick and as consistent as possible is going to benefit them both internally and their customers as well.
So when we first chatted, we went through a bit of a demo, and I thought it was very interesting. But the one thing that really struck me afterwards is just like thinking about it is just the volume of processes that actually go through, the number of documents that actually go through, and those that need signature in this case. And it was that I was like, you almost like sit back and think about it. It's like it is really quite a lot in terms of like, you know, acquisition documents, contracts, NDAs, all of those kind of things. I mean, it's pretty sizable, and I think that piece kind of surprised me. I don't know if you find that you've had that feedback, but it was interesting. It was almost like it's process re-engineering needing to happen on some of these things.
Absolutely. I think the way we, I mean, you know, a bit of brief background for the listeners is we automate the contracts. We put a contract template in a system, you go through and answer questions and create those repeatable documents in a fraction of the time. So what we usually find is a business has one document that they do very frequently, whether that's an order form, letters of engagement, heads of terms of business, whatever it may be, however they want to term it, they're creating that very frequently. You put that in the system and then you get a good time saving, but by using it, you realize actually, as you just said, there's so many other documents sort of around it within the business that can also be automated. As you said, NDAs are another classic one that you might be sending 5, 10 a month or whatever it is. But there's more time around just the creation of those documents. It's finding the templates, making sure you've got the latest version. And if you have distributed teams, those sort of things can become very difficult very quickly. Just because everything's saved in the wrong places these days, people have different versions of them. And if you can minimize all of these different issues and sort of fix it all in one go, then the time savings just multiply up every single time. And every time you add a new person, you're saving massive amounts of time just by having everything centralized. You're minimizing setup times of getting people understanding the system because it's already in there. You literally just answer questions. So so what we find is businesses join with one document they think they're going to save loads of time on, and slowly realize there's so many other documents and so many other processes that they can sort of work through across the business, and not always in the same departments, sort of maybe customer success teams, legal teams, ops teams, whatever it may be.
And so a lot of these processes traditionally being sort of paper based, and I suppose you'd have the, you know, filing cabinets. I remember filing cabinets, or you know, sometimes it's covers with documents stuffed in. But you know, you see that. But I mean, I suppose the drawback of that is you don't get a lot of MI. And you know, I mean, so what's the role of the extra MI you get as a result of the, you know, because you digitalize the process, you can get access to like where documents sit, where they go, etc. I mean, what's your view around like how you can leverage that to then drive further savings?
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So documents, as you know, Word documents, PDF documents. Once you've taken, let's just using contracts as an example, or terms of business document, once you've updated it with the specifics of that deal, whatever it may be, billing dates, billing terms, start dates, end dates, scopes of work, whatever that is, once you've updated that master template into your Word document, printed out and sent it off, or turned it into PDF and got it e-signed, the data that you've put into that document is completely unstructured. It's completely lost. And you might have it in a CRM if your sales team are efficient, but there's a very big disconnect between that information. It might not be the same that's in the CRM because it's not been updated for whatever reason, so you can't rely on that data. With our platform, all of that data now is stored in a database, meaning you have that data as structured data, which is incredibly powerful. And not only does it mean you can sort of review your documents incredibly quickly, and you can jump back into them sort of, you know, 6 months down the line and see the key information without having to dive into the sort of basic terms or the sort of the boilerplate terms, but actually you're starting to collect this data in a completely structured form. So at the moment, we haven't got sort of deep dive analytics on it, but what you're doing is collecting that data. So as soon as we release functionality to dive into this data, you're going to be able to see trends across the data that you have. Maybe that is bigger deal sizes are more likely to change termination dates, or whatever it is. You can start to see links between the data that you've put into that into those contracts, which I think, you know, at the moment that people are benefiting from a little bit, but going forward across the industry, there's so much insight to be had in this data that we can now collect whereas before it was completely unstructured and completely lost. And I think the other exciting thing is the ability to connect CRMs with these contracts, meaning that you can have consistent data between the one source of truth, i.e. the signed document, and your CRM, which really just adds value sort of throughout the business.
I think it's fascinating actually that even with the lockdown, I mean, it's been tough on some folks, but it's almost like all the chips have been sort of thrown up in the air, or the jigsaw piece has been thrown up in the air, and they're going to land in a slightly different way. And it's almost like it's forcing us to sort of start to think about how do we automate some of our processes. And I think it's not just about, how do we take cost out as much as how do we make the process actually better. And there's that kind of redesign theme that's coming through, and it's almost like it's forcing us to join the different processes together to become much more automated and much smarter. And I think you can start to see it happening almost like as a theme, I think, a little bit. So
absolutely. I think as long as your start point or your end point always needs to be the same, we need to have a contract signed. That's the end point. But the starting position of that is your sales conversation, and there's this huge amount of admin in the middle. And it's just been natural for businesses to say, well, the quickest way that we can do this is update a Word template. That is the quickest way. It's the most efficient way. And it is a bit of a sort of a changing way of looking at things. Actually, there is a better way. And actually, going out and trying to find the way that suits your business best.
But I suppose also if you have to, let's say it's a sales document, and you have to update it's a Word template. It forces you, the fact you've got the system, it forces you to then say, well, look, these are actually the fields you do need to have, and these are the degrees of freedom you have. So it's not a blank sheet of paper, it's already filled out sheet of paper, and then it puts additional structure around how do you want to make the changes to that, and what fields would then need to change, because those would go back through the system, and it means that you're getting much more structured data flowing through. I mean, the blank sheet of paper just means you get almost like an infinite number of variations of the different documents, which can cause all sorts of other problems downstream from a lending point of view, as an example.
Absolutely, and I think there's two other sort of key points on that. One is when you come to build that first version of the template. It's often I have discussions with clients, and they say there's loads of back and forth negotiation. And when you sort of ask the questions, what is it that they're negotiating? And it comes down to one or two clauses. And usually it's because they're massively unbalanced. They're asking for, I don't know, if it's a termination period, they're asking for 180 days when actually just make it a little bit more balanced. Maybe it should be 30 or 45 days. And instantly, just by changing a small term in that contract, you're reducing the back and forth, which is saving you hours, potentially days. You're getting the contract signed quicker. You're making that whole customer journey better, and you're going to get paid earlier. And that can just be from a simple change in the wording of the contract, which instantly, that's not even us doing that. That's not automation. That's just sitting down and looking at the things that are taking the time. Yeah. Obviously, you need to make sure it works for you contractually, but ultimately, these things are often fairly small things that get negotiated, but add on huge amounts of time that really aren't adding any value. And the next point is, as you said, when you come to automate a document, it's essential that you're getting the right version in the system from the beginning, which means businesses are going back saying, actually, yeah, we want to use this platform because it's going to save us tens of hours, every week or every month. But we want to make the right ones in there. So they're going back and just looking through their contracts and making sure it's up to date. Some businesses haven't updated them for years and they can be, not in the best sort of place. So it goes through, you go through and update that template in the first instance, meaning that every document going forward is completely compliant. And because all of your users are now using it, they're always using that latest version, minimizing any of those risks.
Yeah, I think that the whole piece around audit and then making sure that you have the fields are the fields and not the previous contract you had, and so that you just all of that audit and control, I think is really kind of fascinating, really. I do think. So what do you think about the future? So we've been through like 6 months of COVID lockdown. We become very much more remote. I mean, both you and I are both sitting at home, you know, having this conversation. So we've sort of got much more adopted this digital kind of lifestyle in some ways, and sort of like processes. We might be going back into lockdown. What do you think is going to happen next? What do you think the future is going to be?
I wish I could tell you. Yeah, well, I think that, you know, the trends we've seen over the last 6 months or so are just going to continue. The businesses that don't adapt, the businesses that are still trying desperately to get their contract signed in person, you know, they shouldn't be doing that anyway. That's just going to end. Those businesses are going to fold. The businesses that are still getting their contracts sent over emails and sort of back and forth conversations like that, time efficiencies they're not in their favor. And the businesses that are adopting, and there's thousands and thousands of businesses that are out there adopting sort of digital solutions. Those are the businesses that are going to continue. They are going to be the ones that succeed. And everyone trying to cling on to what was happening before is just going to get their margins squeezed. And they're going to be the ones, unfortunately, that are going to fail, just because everyone's being able to be more efficient. They've been forced to become more efficient. The ones that are tech savvy, unfortunately, fortunately, they're going to be the ones that are going to be able to you know, outdo the competition. And I can't see that stopping. And now the ball's properly rolling. That's just going to continue. People are realizing what they can do very quickly and very easily. Implementing new solutions, new processes doesn't take weeks, months, years anymore like it used to. You can literally sign up to a website and be going the same day. And completely transform your business, giving you back hours and hours and hours, you know, in a morning, which is, there's been very few times in history when we've been able to do that, and businesses have realized that now, and the ones that don't are unfortunately going to get left behind.
Yeah, I think there's been a real sea change, and you can sort of see it's almost like structurally it's crazy to see change, and you can feel it, and you can almost like feel the economy kind of changing, and it's just, you know, will it buy? I kind of getting the feeling now that it might be like this for the longer term, and it's not something that's necessarily going to go back to the way it was. I mean, it really is something that's you know, quite significant, I think, over time. So, well, it's been really great to chat with you. I mean, I'd say since we first chatted, it's been fascinating. It's definitely made me think about some of the processes that you know that I come across. So I really appreciate you making the time today and sort of like just exploring it a little bit more. So thanks very much, Josh.
No worries at all, Chris. Thank you very much.
Okay. Speak to you soon.
Cheers. Bye-bye.